Hi, I'm Amber Porterfield and I'm an associate interior designer and product designer at Gensler. I'm guest hosting this installment of CHIME On Demand. I'm so excited to be joined by Wendy Heger, who is a principal and client development director at Page. Wendy engages with leaders to advance business development for Page's Houston office with a focus on the civic market sector. Firm-wide, she manages Page's housing and hospitality sector. She also oversees civic and academic projects. Wendy joined Page with 10 years of architectural experience with public projects and 8 years as a facilities owner's representative. Okay, well, let's get started. So Wendy, what were your ambitions at the beginning of your career? And did you expect that you would become a principal at an influential design firm?
Well, I'm thrilled to be where I am with Paige. And I always had a vision of what I wanted to do with my career, but it was quite a circuitous path to get there. And to build the resume for the kind of work that I wanted to do, I ended up working in both the public and private sector. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen for a second. And here we go. Just real quickly kind of run through my path, which was not all that direct to where I am now. I started, when I was in high school, I was very interested in performing arts and a lot of different things. And I did some aptitude testing that suggested that city planning, architecture, engineering might be a really good path for me. And so that aligned with my family history. My great-grandfather came to Houston in 1906 to found Tea's Nursery, and his company planted all the trees on the Rice University campus and in River Oaks and helped develop Bel Air and other beautiful things up and down Main Street, all of those live oaks that you see there. And I thought, wow, you know, if I could make a positive difference in the public realm of Houston, that's what I want to do with my career. And so I went to UT, but I started with a liberal arts degree to kind of have a better understanding of the world and philosophy and history. And then when I got out, then I went to MIT and got a degree in architecture. But when I came back to Houston, there wasn't a lot of architecture work available. Not a lot of firms were hiring. So I went to work for the city of Houston when they were going to do zoning, and I worked on the comprehensive plan, which was a great overview of the city. And we drove all over the city for the zoning effort to catalog land uses. And so I really saw every corner of the city in doing that, which was fantastic. And then I went to work in the private sector for Willis Bricker, which became Willis Bricker Kennedy, which became Bricker Kennedy. And there I started in a marketing capacity. But then as architecture work picked up, I was able to get licensed as an architect. And one of my first big projects was park renovations for the city. So again, still remaining with kind of civic work. And I also got married, and I had my son, who is now graduating from high school. And that has been an important part of my career, the tremendous support of my husband and the wonderful chance to raise a son has been fantastic. So after that, I went to work for City of Houston again, but this time in the General Services Department, managing their capital improvement plan. And at that time, I also got to introduce LEED, the Green Building Program, to the city, which was a really fun opportunity. And then I went over to Houston Public Library and worked on the client side, working with architects and contractors to do library projects. And also got to do murals with an artist. And then my biggest project there was the renovation and addition to the Julia Idison building with your firm, Amber. And that was a tremendous experience with a great team of people and was very rewarding.
I'm glad you shared this because I saw this on your bio and I thought, oh my gosh, how amazing is that? I love this building. It's such an amazing part of Houston history.
And very meaningful to me, given my family's history in Houston, that my ancestors went to this building when it was built.
Wow.
And so very rewarding for me personally, fulfilling. And then, so then I felt like I had done all I could do on the city side, and that's when I joined Page. And different kind of perspective, because it's a larger firm and does all kinds of work, all kinds of services, and all kinds of markets. But again, I was drawn to the civic market. The very first project I did here was a TV studio in City Hall in that historic building. And then I've done a lot of planning with the city, with the county, with other entities. I've done high schools, and back to my library roots, I got to work on the Robinson West Chase Neighborhood Library, leading that as a principal in charge, and a master plan. Since this is a Central Houston video, this was the Western Downtown Facilities Master Plan, was really looking at the civic owned part of downtown, the city owned part of downtown, and how could they leverage their resources to create more of a civic center. So let me unshare for a minute. That's a long answer, but I guess the point is that I just kept an idea on the kind of work that I wanted to do and the things that were fulfilling and meaningful to me, and then looked for opportunities as they arose and took a few zigs and zags, but it all kind of built into what I'm doing now.
I mean, you have had an amazing career, and by your portfolio, I mean, you're truly shaping the lives of the people in our city. So my next question kind of builds off of that, because it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to create great design that has a positive effect on the human experience. So how are you keeping your teams inspired and collaborative during this time when our emotions are being pulled in 100 different directions?
It is challenging, and one of my heroes is a woman named Betty Sue Flowers, who has taught at University of Texas. She's also led the LBJ Library, and I urge the CHIME members to look up this article called "The American Dream and the Economic Myth." And the point of this story is that how we tell the story influences the future and what the story is. And so in terms of keeping focus, keeping energy in what you're doing, a lot of it has to do with how you tell the story of your life. You can actually influence the future of your life by how you tell that story. And so you can tell your story as a hero story. You can tell your story as a victim story. Or my favorite is to tell your story as a story of overcoming adversity and moving past and growing from the adversity. And I think that that's a really effective tool that I use with my teams to try to keep a focus on the purpose, on why we're here. And that helps us move beyond the everyday challenges and things having to do with the pandemic, loneliness, or having that common shared mission and that common vision of where you want to go, I think is a really powerful tool.
It is. And especially now that we're going through a once in a lifetime pandemic event, but this time has given us time to pause and reflect on who we are and what is important to us. And we've all gained a little more empathy for one another because we're all going through this together. So how do you envision workplace culture in the future? And what kind of qualities and expectations do you look for or have for the rising talent at your firm?
Well, I really enjoy working with everyone at my firm. I enjoy the diversity. I enjoy everybody brings something to the table. And I'm going to share my screen one more time and share a book that helps me make sure that I am able to support and highlight the expertise and talents and qualities that people that I work with have. Not just people at Page, but also the owners and managers and consultants that I work with. So this is one of my favorite books, Leadership as an Art. And it really is about the art of nurturing and providing a safe and a space that helps people flourish. And it's not the same application for each person. You know, some people need different kinds of encouragement or different kinds of recognition, different kinds of communication. And one of the things I like about this book is it talks about how it's not a management and leadership is not a blanket approach to everyone. And so I guess for the people that I get to work with, I really am just hoping that they are bold in expressing who they are and that they know themselves, that they know what their talents are and what their strengths are, and are take some initiative in expressing those and finding opportunities to do the things that they know that they can do best. And then I try to make the space for that.
I love that because I think a lot of times, like especially in design, it's so vulnerable and you're expressing yourself. So to have a safe space to do that is really, really important. And I find that a lot with, I'm starting to mentor younger designers now, and I'm starting to realize, that's one of the things that I struggled with, and to help. And you're right, everybody's different. And what is that safe space? What does that look like for every individual person? So important. So this next question, you more than anybody knows our city. So I want to get your perspective on, how important is it to be a part of Central Houston and have this organization as part of our city's fabric?
Central Houston has been important to me from the very beginning of my career. I mean, back when I was working with City of Houston in the Planning and Development Department, Central Houston was an important partner in that planning and zoning effort. And then when zoning got voted down, Central Houston remained an important player with the city to try to move the city forward in terms of thoughtful development, thoughtful planning, the kind of infrastructure that will support not just development, but really the quality of life of the city. I think the North Houston Highway Improvement Program is going to make a huge difference in our city, especially in downtown. And Central Houston has taken such a leadership role in that project. I think that's so important. And I think that could really take our city into its next phase of being a great city, not just for transportation, but for quality of life, park space, opportunities for the kind of mixed development that makes a lively downtown.
Yeah. So what do you think are the biggest design challenges we face as a city? Like, what is a great city? What are we doing wrong? And how can we all help shape the city, even if you're not an architect or a designer?
Well, I think, again, envisioning where we want to be and then stepping back and figuring out the steps we need to take to get there. Climate change, we've really got to be making decisions in everything we do in every aspect of our lives, of long-term thinking of how we're going to deal with climate change and what we can do to build with more of a view of the long-term future of our planet and our environment. I think that's really important. The quality of life in our city, yes, thriving, it's a synergy, right? The thriving businesses and the thriving quality of life, and you can't have one without the other. And certainly education is going to be a critical component of quality of life for the city. It's not exactly a design challenge, but it is in terms of providing the infrastructure support, not just for public school, but for homeschool, for online learning. You know, what do we need to be doing in terms of our city infrastructure?
Mm-hmm.
Tax revenue, for so long in the city, we have focused very much on police and fire protection, which are, of course, critically important, but we need to make sure that we're not neglecting all the other civic functions, libraries, parks, health, public health, and that we think very carefully when we're making investments in our city of all of the aspects of civic life. And money's tight, right, for cities and counties right now. And so with less money to go around, we've really got to be careful about prioritizing not just for today, but for 10, 20, 30 years from now. The people involved in Houston's history have made some amazing long-term investments like the Port of Houston and the Texas Medical Center, and we've got to keep thinking long-term.
I agree. And I agree with you. It all comes down to our communities, and every neighborhood should have its own library, its own grocery store, its own transportation, and connect to the other neighborhoods. So I think we have a little bit of time left.
Okay.
And I really want to ask this question to you because I have to as a fellow designer. Who are your design heroes and why?
Actually, my design heroes tend to be more city planners and landscape architects than architects, although I do have architect heroes as well. Arthur Comey created plans for City of Houston back in the 20s and 30s that have had amazing impact on the city in terms of the civic center downtown and in terms of all of the linear parks along the bios and the big parks, Herman Park and Memorial Park. So I'd say Comey is one of my heroes. Hair and Hair, landscape architects, part of the City Beautiful movement that my ancestors, my family were involved in creating tree-lined boulevards throughout the city, in creating residential developments that included streetscape and trees. That's so important. Frederick Law Olmsted, and then more on the architecture side, Fay Jones. I love Thorncrown Chapel is one of my favorite pieces of architecture. Renzo Piano, the Menil, is not only an amazing piece of architecture, but also amazingly sited in the neighborhood. Beautiful integration with the landscape and with the surrounding neighborhood. John Chase, what a pioneer in terms of architecture and his life. His innovation in terms of bringing the landscape right into the middle of the house. I mean, fantastic. There are people at my firm, Marcus Martinez, who is a fantastic civic architect with incredibly creative ideas about how to integrate with the city and provide durable, kind of cost-effective solutions that are thinking long-term. I guess I have a lot of design heroes, but I guess the thing they have in common is they're thinking bigger than the building. You know, they're really thinking about a building's place in the city.
Yeah, experience is so much more valuable than just seeing something. It's about how you feel when you're around. Well, yeah. Wendy, this was so great. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your perspective with CHIME. And to everyone out there sitting in their home offices, I hope to see you downtown soon. Bye.
Thank you.